Hello, stream. This time I remembered. Welcome, everyone, to the stream. Today, I want to learn what pro gamers, pro players do in order to stay in shape, get in shape for their game. Because I think it's a pretty interesting idea when it comes to gamers. You would think that a lot of us sitting at home just playing games for 6, 8, 10 hours a day, being really good at a game is all you needed to do. But when I was doing some research on the topic, a lot of it does show that some, or not some, but the vast majority of pro players actually do physical activity. They've got to do things outside just playing the game in order to excel. So I want to see what we can learn about those people and what they do, what the teams do, the players do, all of them. Because I think that can offer insight for everyone else who wants to get into competitive gaming and not be super casual about it, but want to get better at their game and what you need to do in order to do that. So I looked up a couple videos on YouTube to see what they could talk about. And there was one, where's that one? There's this one. Who uploaded this one? YouTube channel The Gamer has a video up, Inside Relentless Training of a Pro Gamer. So I kind of want to check that out. And then one thing I like doing about this, just finding topics to talk about, is that I can feed it directly into my Substack. So I actually have a few. I've got one relatively written, I'd say about 80% that I want to put out, and then there's another one I want to get to as well. But it's like content feeding content. It's kind of nice. And also, if there's any takes, I could just clip this out and put it on the channel. So, bunch of potential. But I do want to see, what it takes physically and mentally in order to perform, to see what everyone else does, to see what, anyone can do about it. Because is it just these kids are very good at a game, therefore they get scouted, put onto a team, therefore they become pro gamer, and is everyone else just fucked from birth? I doubt it. People are born with inherent abilities at physical things, physical sports, like they're just gods from the get-go. But I watched the Michael Jordan documentary, and the amount of time and effort you put into something, I think, greatly outweighs your, born athleticism, or your, born for this activity. You were born to do this. I think that plays a part in it, and that definitely gets their foot in the door, but they don't stay just because they were made for it. No one was really made to do what they do. They work at it. It's something that's interesting. They went for it, but the amount of work that they put into, especially basketball players, but anyone, the amount of work that they put into something greatly outweighs their being born for whatever it is. So we're going to take a look and see what kind of stuff we can learn about it. All right. So I've got this one pulled up. Oh, what did I put? Hold on. What did I put for that scene? Right. Okay. I need to change that. But this scene right here is my worldview, so I need to shorten that up to about right here. Let's get rid of that. I've got this searched up, and then I've got these two up and going. So let's take a look at this one.
You may think it's all fun and games to be a professional gamer, but there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into transforming this fun hobby into a profession. Pro gamers don't just sit around all day munching on Doritos and drinking Mountain Dew. They train like professional athletes and dedicate nearly every second of their lives to perfecting their craft. In fact, you'd be surprised at how similar the life of a pro athlete is to the life of a pro gamer. So let's talk.
And that would be an interesting way to look about it, You've got these people that've got an activity, be it gaming or actual sports, traditional sports, And you already know how much time and effort and work goes into doing stuff like that. So honestly, if you can do the same amount of time and effort into gaming that you do the sports, that's pretty much the reason why you see, or that's pretty much the reason why when you watch a competitive game, you see just crazy things happening. And that's what gets it so hype. It's like you've got people who aren't just good at the game, but who dedicate so much of their time to it, just like traditional sports. It all makes sense.
Talk about how difficult it really is to become one of the top pro gamers in the world.
They actually pay you?
I don't watch The Simpsons. That's actually cool. What the?
Pro gamer training begins well before you even become a pro. You see, to become a pro, you have to train like a pro, even if you aren't a pro yet.
I'm curious if that's actually true. Because I think right now, since it's so new, and then when a new game comes out, it just boils down to who spent the most amount of time into the game and who made the biggest splashes before, and get scouted. So,
Aspiring pro gamers typically stick to one game on one platform and hone their...
That was The Witcher.
Pro yet. Aspiring pro gamers typically stick to one game on...
Sure, yeah. Competitive Witcher? Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, okay. That's just kind of funny.
One platform and hone their craft in that specific game, putting countless hours of their time into mastering it. Typically, these gamers have other responsibilities like school, for example, so they can't dedicate all of their time to gaming. But all their free time is put into honing their craft. They're watching streamers online, learning tips and tricks through YouTube videos, and watching how pro gamers play on Twitch, trying to emulate what they see. Once a gamer believes they've mastered the game and are good enough for the pro scene, they usually start trying to get their name out there, which is easier said than done. The hardest part of being a pro gamer is trying to find a sponsor or pro team to fund your career. Nowadays, with YouTube, Twitch, Mixer, and other social media, it's not too hard to share clips and entire videos with others. You'll see these games.
So that's one issue I do have with competitive gaming, is that it seems the scouting is done online, and it comes from scouts going on Twitch, going on YouTube, finding clips, finding plenty of content about a certain person who's making waves in the space. And I guess from there, they scout, they try to hit them up, emails, DMs, whatever. And it's either the scouts, or maybe there's teams or people, friends that are trying to put teams together. And then the scouts check out the teams, but that's where it sort of starts. You pick a game, you play that game, and then you have to make waves online. So basically, content creators or people who do content are the only ones capable of being scouted. I feel like that's a pretty big issue. And this ties into a podcast I was listening to yesterday. I forget what the name of it is, but they talk about esports and whatnot. And they were on the topic of not scouting really, but it correlated it to how we use traditional sports, how we get players from a very young age to then grow playing that game, soccer, football, baseball, whatever. So they play the little leagues all the way until high school. Maybe they join the high school team. Maybe they go college. And then from college, they get drafted into one of the teams. But there's a starting point, and then there's the end point. And the entire process takes, 20 some odd years, maybe even shorter depending on the person. But there's an entryway, and the entryway is actually starting playing games when you're a kid and then going from there. We really don't have anything like that for esports, other than mom and dad decide to get the kid a computer. They go onto the computer and they play whatever game that they want. And then they have to take it seriously, be competitive at it, and then hopefully join other teams, maybe do little tournaments and whatnot, maybe accumulate some prize money, and then they can sort of use that as a resume when they try to find scouts or scouts find them, and then they just go from there. I feel like what we do now is very patchy, and it only captures, a small subset of the entire population that is capable of doing this. And, you know, it's not good enough. It's not a full blanket over, you know, the entire gaming sphere, which I understand is not probably going to happen. It'd be rather impossible. But you would be able to find people who can fill the roles of doing things competitively. You know, people hopefully with a more mature attitude. People who probably can fit the lifestyle for it. Because constantly you keep hearing people in competitive esports that, you know, the game's getting to them, the schedule's getting to them, the hate from, you know, other people are getting to them. So plenty of people out there who are still in their adolescence, especially emotionally, even if they may be 18 plus years old, but they're not old enough to withstand, you know, life, pretty much. That's one issue I still kind of have with esports, is that you start at 18 because legally you have to. You can still play before you're 18 and you just be good. And then once you're 18, boom, you're in. Who did that in the Overwatch League? I think it was Sinatra, actually. He was already picked to join San Francisco, but he wasn't old enough to actually compete. But once he turned 18, he was brought on, and it just went from there. But, you know, being picked at 17 or 16, however early it was, to then being on a waiting list to then go at 18, like, I get Sinatra's good regardless of the drama in his past, but I feel like with the millions of people who played Overwatch in the beginning, and he's not the best player ever to have ever existed, and you couldn't have found anyone else, like, that's the problem that I kind of have with the current system, is that there is no better way in order to scout and draft people into certain leagues. We kind of just go off content that's posted on the internet, and that's how we find them. Even though there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of more well-qualified people to join. But anyway, let's go ahead.
Gamers playing for 6 to 8 hours a day, streaming on Twitch, and uploading videos to YouTube every day. All they do is practice, practice, and practice. Just like...
But again, that doesn't include all the people who don't post content. They're still good. They probably don't post content. The amount of good players who don't post content, you know, they're just missed opportunity.
Pro gamers, these players are dedicated to getting better each and every day. Gaming is their life, and they gave everything up for it. These gamers...
I mean, they're still kids, but
don't show off their work to be cocky or anything like that. They just want to get noticed in the hopes of landing a sponsorship deal or a spot on a pro team.
Mm-hmm.
Pro teams don't just play public matches and recruit whoever impresses them the most. They have scouts searching for the best players who aren't committed to a team yet. Aspiring pro gamers are showcasing why they deserve to be on a pro team.
Dude, The Simpsons doing a full-on League of Legends episode. That's insane. That's kind of funny. I don't watch The Simpsons. There's a lot of like more adult-themed cartoons. Simpsons is like it's like middle school, high school, teens, really. But I never watched South Park, never watched The Simpsons, so I kind of just missed that part. I did watch a lot of Family Guy, so.
Which could be exhausting and may cause some of them to lose interest in the profession altogether. Add on the
Hold on, let's go back.
Whoever impresses them the most. They have scouts searching for the best players who aren't committed to a team yet. Aspiring pro gamers are showcasing why they deserve to be on a pro team, which could be exhausting and may cause some of them to lose interest in the profession altogether.
True. I mean, if you're putting so much work into something, you definitely do get burnout, regardless of what it is. So, but I mean, that's still a way to weed through all the competition. So if people can stick with it and they're into it, then chances are they're going to keep going, versus people that aren't as into it, so you don't want to draft them. Or not draft, but you don't want to pick them for your team. So no, that's like a natural barrier of entry, is, you know, people who want to do it will keep doing it.
Add on the fact that many pro gamers are teenagers and young adults,
and that's the problem I have. A lot of pro gamers are teenagers and young adults.
It doesn't make things any easier. It means that
they haven't gone through anything of life yet. Imagine getting picked for that, anything professional like that, even if it's traditional sports, which they don't. I don't know if any traditional sport, pro leagues, NFL, NHL, all of that, MLB, they pick people straight out of high school. I don't think they do that anymore. They, for the most part, pick from collegiate teams. And it takes a little bit of time for them to perform in those collegiate teams before they get pulled up into professionals. And even most of them even go to the minor leagues while they're an adults. So for kids, children, literal children, even at 18, even at 19, basically children. You don't just magically become an adult. If you're in high school, the level of responsibilities that you have in the real world are basically non-existent, other than do your homework, pass school, which that's nothing compared to actual adult life. But for them to go from that to this, to go from 7-8 hours a day of school doing homework, something they're conditioned to do over the course of their entire life, to then boom, big time, adult time. Here's a contract. Here's, NDAs. Here's all this other bullshit, sponsors, things you're allowed to do, things you're not allowed to do. The phone's ringing off the hook. And, they need to deal with all of that adult responsible shit, but also commit 8, 10, 12 hours to the game that they're trying to do. That's a way to literally burn the shit out of these kids. So, quite honestly, one thing I think they need to rethink is the age in which people can go into the professional league. But I think that's more of a growing pain. They need to establish it early on so that it can generate, big sponsorships, big swaths of money. Like, you look at all the big leagues and the billions of dollars that go through those programs, but they've been around for 70, 80, 100, 90, 100 years more than gaming. So it's still, even at this point, very grassroots compared to everything else, especially here in the United States. It's just non-existent. It doesn't compete, really. It's good, and it still offers a pretty decent amount of money, but I think if you were to adjust for inflation, there's no difference between competitive gamers now and probably professional baseball players back in the 40s and 50s. Probably even before all that, once the game and the pro leagues were brand new. You'd see probably almost a 1-to-1. So it might just be a growing pain, but I definitely think that's not going to be the thing later on, especially when you've got a bunch of these kids who are now growing through the competitive landscape, playing those games, and they're not going to stop once they hit adulthood, and they're going to continue on all the way through their 20s and probably even through their 30s. But
you really only have a small window of opportunity to be a pro gamer before it's gone.
You only have a small window of opportunity to be a pro gamer before it's gone. I think that's false. I think that's what it looks like right now, but I think that's false.
Some pro gamers who were on top of their game retired before hitting age 25.
Retired before 25. Again, right now, sure. But if you had teams that were offering millions of dollars, you would keep going. You might get burned out, but that's on the player. The players that can perform and don't get burned out, they're the ones that are going to, prop the entire concept up on their shoulders. And those people, I'm sorry, the pro athletes that we have that are in their 40s and 50s, the Brett Favres of the world, they still perform because they dedicated their life to doing something specific. And if you got people that are burning out after a couple years playing the game and they don't want to do it anymore, most don't leave to go do something else. They leave to become content creators. So it's a money switch. It's not because they can't perform anymore. I think, honestly, anyone who's in their 20s can play competitively. It's all about I think it's mostly about the training that goes into performing at the game. It's got less to do with age. The average, response time for people, I think is not that big of a deal compared to the awareness and knowledge and coordination that you have with the team. To be able to click faster, like if you're looking at CSGO or Valorant, to be able to click faster at a certain situation would probably happen, so for two people, one can click at, 170 milliseconds, really quick reaction time. The other could be at 200. Is that 30 like a make or break between consistently winning every single game that they go against versus losing consistently against that person all the time? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I don't think that 30 milliseconds is that big of a deal, especially when you consider the rest of the roster that can swap off the coordination to go do stuff to take that advantage away. There's always in any game, any professional sport, there's always a way to rebalance everything so that one's advantage does not outshine everyone else. And who's to say 20, 30, 40 years from now that games like Counter-Strike and Valorant are going to, exist? If they're gonna, last for decades on end. Because that's one thing that's interesting about pro gaming is that new games pop up, every couple of years. They make their own league, and then people can translate to that game pretty good, or they have to start from scratch and build their way up. And, these games get more and more not intense, but they get more and more complicated in how they go. And, the more competitive that they get, the more than likely that anyone can join in who's able to compete at that level. So, honestly, age when it comes to competitive gaming is not that big of a deal now, and it's not going to be if this keeps going in an upward trajectory like it is now.
That's right in the prime of most pro athletes' careers, or before hitting age 25. That's right in the prime of most pro athletes' careers.
Yeah, so. And I wouldn't doubt, 70, 80, 100 years ago. I keep skipping 90, but fuck 90 years ago. They were young enough then where they had to do other things outside of life before dedicating their entire youth, their entire early adulthood to the game. So times change. Things change.
But the end of the road for pro gamers. It's honestly pretty crazy. On top of all that, like we mentioned earlier, many aspiring pro gamers are also going to school during their prime gaming years. Mm-hmm. So they may be trying to balance...
Which, again, an issue. If you've got people that are still growing, if they're out of high school, if they're in high school, but going out of high school to go to college, they can still play, I think, collegiate level teams, collegiate level leagues, but not the pro stuff where it takes 8, 10, 12 hours, where they can entirely skip the whole college bit and go straight to the pro leagues. Traditional sports did that all the time back in the day, even now still. But for gaming, something you can pick up without having to really go anywhere. You just need the money for a system. But you also mix in everything else to train for it, but also play it here. Like, you don't need to go to a batting cage. You don't need to go to a baseball park. I mean, my whole deal with making a LAN center that focuses on getting kids ready to perform at like high school or collegiate level esports, that is that purpose. That is the batting cage for gamers. That is the baseball diamond, the soccer field, the football field for gamers is a LAN center that focuses on doing that. But eventually,
academics with gaming.
But yeah, with school still tied into it and all that, it's you're not going to get a lot of utility out of people who are still growing versus the ones that are, I guess, done and are in their adulthood, starting all their adult things, but also can go this direction.
which is almost impossible without falling behind in one or the other. It could definitely feel hopeless at times, which is why having financial backing is the most important factor in becoming a pro gamer. Of course, gamers can only get financial backing by being good players, though, so it's not like having money is all you need to be a pro gamer.
Depends when you stream or make content if people watch you because you're good or watch you because you're entertaining. Either way.
By getting their name out there and showing their skills, aspiring pro gamers may eventually catch the eye of pro teams and sponsors. Now, of course, there are plenty of amazing gamers who aren't sponsored or any part of a pro team. So not every incredible talented player will be able to turn a love of gaming into a career. But if sponsors or pro teams do take note of how good these players are, they typically sign that contract because...
Yes, but again, if we're not able to find everyone who's good, then honestly, what's the point?
Now they'll be able to dedicate all their time and effort into being a pro gamer. The thing is, getting on a pro team is only the beginning. That's where things are truly taken up a notch, and the even more intense training finally begins. Pretty much.
And again, if you don't have adults who are able to do this, you still have kids, it's a struggle.
Every second of every day is scheduled for a pro gamer. If working a 9-to-5 office job has you feeling tied down, being a pro gamer is exponentially worse.
Thus leading to burnout.
Each day is spent playing the same game almost non-stop. Most pros spend at least 8 hours playing the game each day, which is about the amount of time people spend at a full-time job of a workday. So it's not crazy, but not everyone plays just 8 hours a day. Some can spend up to 12 hours a day on the sticks. That's half the day playing video games. It's crazy. A lot of pros believe that time spent not playing the game is time spent allowing the other teams to get better.
That's honestly a good mindset. I think that's pretty similar to a lot of pro athletes and how they think. Every second of every day that I don't use to improve at something is just someone else getting better at something. I mean, yeah, I think that mindset translates pretty well. But again, how does an 18-year-old come to that realization? Granted, the amount of pro gamers out there is pretty small compared to the rest of the population. So those are definitely the outliers that understand that mindset and are willing to perform. But again, I think if you were to up it to like 21 to like 25 and keep them on, I don't even know if pro teams, league owners, coaches consider, hey, you're reaching 28, I think it's time for you to leave. Like, if anyone like comes to that decision on whether or not to keep someone, I think is a silly thing. You've got a dude that's got so much experience, and if his track record is good leading, all the way to 30 years old, I'd keep him on. Granted, his experience might cost them more of a premium, and that's a reason why people retire, is that they can't be they're not affordable, or they decide to go to do content creation instead, which can earn them considerably more money and considerably less stress. So it all in all could be about the fact that the esports scene right now does not generate enough money for the players. That honestly could be it. It's a money game. It's not an age game. It's not an ability game. It's money. It might be all about money. I'm not sure. That's what it feels like. If esports had the same monetary backing as baseball or football or soccer, even worldwide soccer, then I think they'd be fine. But they can't afford them, thus they gotta go. Brand new 18-year-old, pay him nothing just to perform at a pro level, even if they're good, but they're affordable.
The competitive nature in esports is beyond anything we've ever seen. Players literally won't sleep, all in an effort to get better. But how do they get better? Well, most pro teams have coaches and game analysts who help the players understand what went wrong and where they could improve, just like coaches in pro sports. For example, if the team had communication issues in their last match, you better believe that they're going to work very hard on fixing that before the next one. Teamwork is vital in esports, and players are constantly working on codes and keywords to make communication as seamless as possible.
I kind of like that idea. because I used to play baseball when I was younger, and communication was signs. You know, physically looking at coaches to see what signs are going to give. Catcher and pitcher looking for signs, doing signs so that they can communicate. Yeah, that just seems like something they could do in gaming. If they work on I could think like a MOBA 5v5 positioning and all that, they can definitely call out like certain setups and stuff like that. But I wonder who on the team, because I know some leagues don't allow coaches or anyone outside the team to communicate to them in the middle of a game. They can like in between rounds and stuff like that, depending. But I wonder who on the team would be given the role of shot caller, who'd be given the role of, you know, calling stuff out. You know, there has to be a captain, right? But I don't know if that's really discussed in esports, if there is a captain of the team. I actually don't know. I don't know if anyone on an esports team is designated as captain. That'd be interesting if they weren't, and it's just the 5 guys going off of what the coach tells them. That'd be interesting.
This also means that each player needs to know their role and execute it to the best of their ability. As you can tell, there's a lot for a pro gamer to do in between tournaments, and they could easily be kept busy for 8 to 12 hours each day. It's a lot of work, and that's just team training. Even in their off time from the team, players are watching footage of their previous games, as well as footage of upcoming teams to understand the way they play and try to figure out their weaknesses and how to take advantage of them. They could then bring up this information to their coaches and possibly work on improving this area of their game as a team. A pro gamer's...
And that's still one thing about gaming being so young still, is that you've got these pro players and coaches who don't have a lot of experience compared to traditional sports. Like, you still have coaches who have been working with a game and have been pro players before, and so they understand a lot of stuff. They've been to the matches and all that, but comparatively, like, they haven't read biographies of coaches of old. You know, there's no hidden nuggets of knowledge that have been passed down through the generations. So coaches are still learning as well as the players. Everyone's still learning. It's still very, very open to interpretation.
Work is never really done, and some could spend up to 16 hours a day working. Of course, since it's a video game, it's quite easy to practice in public matches with those of similar skill levels. If skill-based matchmaking exists for the game, but at the end of the day, it's not the same as being in an actual pro match in an actual venue.
Exactly my point with LAN centers that get kids early into the culture and then going from there. You have a place where you can practice and train with your team, with your coaches, but also get the experience of being on a stage in a venue against other people. Because on LAN, because it's way different. It's a different experience compared to online matchmaking. It's so different. And I know this. I actually have experience with this. I played against... not all the time, but I did play against other teams on games. I was in charge of the Valorant tournaments set up at the LAN center, and we did one time have 3 separate teams. One was like half formed, one was missing one person, and then the third team was a full team of 5, all friends, and they were pretty damn good at the game. I don't recall if they were immortal, but they were pretty, like, up there. So, we just went around. It was one team against the second team. It was the second team against the third team. It was the first team versus the third team, and we just did that a few times. So, the one team, the full team of 5, who were immortal level players, they definitely cleaned up the competition. But I noticed some pretty interesting things about playing against a team that good on a team like mine, where it had I think we had 2 or 3 other employees, but everyone could play FPS except for one of us. They were still relatively new, and I don't think they had a lot of experience playing FPS, especially Valorant. Like, he had questions like, how do I disarm the bomb, shit like that. But even for someone my skill level, because not putting too much work into playing Valorant. I did, I think in the first season, get it to gold. I don't remember if it was gold 1 or gold 2. But that was translated rank from playing other FPS. That wasn't playing Valorant endlessly forever, putting so much time and effort into learning and understanding the game. That was just my entry-level sort of rank, which totally makes sense. And I'm fine with landing in gold. Gold is top of the bell curve. You're not worse than everyone, but you're not better than everyone. That's like where you need to be. I think, personally, the top of the bell curve, that's where you need to be in order to progress down, 1 or 2 standard deviations to try to get to diamond, to try to get to immortal, to try to get into, is the top rank still Valorant? Anyway, to get there, you have to get a good starting point. If you're in bronze or iron, you're missing a lot of core things about playing the game that you're trying to play. I think to land there, you either don't know how to play the game, I'm talking like the basic fundamentals, or you're not that good at keyboard and mouse. That's something to work on, to practice with. It's, the same deal like trying to catch a baseball with a glove, catching and throwing, catching, releasing, all of that. Hitting a pitch with a baseball bat. If you don't know the fundamentals, you will not be able to go past the average player, because to get past that comes the nuance of the game, comes positioning, the much more detail-oriented sort of things. But going back to a LAN center and having to go against other players, I learned playing against guys that were way above my rank. I could hang with them on LAN with a team that I can coordinate with. That was the interesting part. Was I was gold. The vast majority of them were a couple ranks higher than me. Probably some were diamond. Probably some were even more than diamond. And there were plenty of situations where I caught them off guard. I outshot them. They tried to take me and couldn't happen. I either avoided them, delayed them. But being on a team, you'll notice that there's not a lot of difference between a small group of people, so long as everyone else is at a similar playing field. Because if you just stick to online matchmaking, you're missing out on so many things that make you and the other person or the other people similar. There's no standards at which we start at in order to gauge at who can be better than the others. So that's my thing. That's my huge thing. Playing on LAN in real life against a team while you're on a team and you know how to coordinate with everyone, you've got practice with everyone. I think that needs to start a lot sooner before these kids turn 18 and be considered for pro if they don't have real life experience. I'm honestly curious if there's anyone out there that could talk to me about who's run a team, who's been a coach of a team, who's even been on a team, where players have come in from the team onto the team who have no experience competing or very little experience competing in real life on a stage. I'm very curious about that part. I wonder how much of a learning curve that is to finally go on stage in front of a bunch of people, especially the early days of the Overwatch League, and playing online for thousands, tens of thousands, probably even 100,000 at this point, cumulatively, probably even millions at this point. People watching you, grading your performance, and then hitting you up online being like, yo, that was good, or yo, you suck, why are you even here? Like, I'm curious how well they did against all of that stuff. But if you had people do it before who are used to all the competitive things on stage in front of a bunch of people, live streamed, I'm curious the difference. I'm curious how many people actually struggled trying to perform while doing that in the beginning. That'd be interesting to know.
Plus, the meta of esports games is always changing. New weapons could be added to the game, and older weapons could be nerfed or buffed. Even new characters with unique abilities could be added to the game, changing everything. While pro sports takes decades to evolve, all esports needs is one update and the entire game changes.
Yeah, but if you dedicate so much time into it, those changes you can probably understand. Like a game like League of Legends or Overwatch, or even Valorant, where you've got a bunch of characters with a bunch of abilities. They get buffed, they get nerfed. You already have that previous experience and what you can do with those characters. If a point value changed for a buff or a nerf, or if an entire ability went away or they changed it out for something else, I think that's not that big of a deal. Especially if you play the game way more than everyone else, those things will still translate pretty well. It's like the update goes to the game, but then the update goes to the brain, and you're able to calculate, okay, maybe I can still do this, but not as good as what it used to be before this update. I don't think that's that big of a deal. But, I mean, they do rule changes in traditional sports, so those are kind of updates. They do it, I wouldn't say all the time, but they do it plenty of times, especially while the sports were still new. This is still new. Everything about this is still pretty damn new. Will we ever have a game where it's so perfectly tuned? Maybe not perfectly tuned, that's a wrong way to put it, but the standards of which to play the game are so good that doing updates doesn't really make sense. I don't know. It all depends. But I think we might be reaching a point in technology where we kind of don't need anything newer or better. That's one thing I think we still need as a professional sport, is we need standards set, all competitive standards. And what I mean by that is mice that weigh differently, mice that have different button inputs, keyboards, and their speed, monitors and their frame rate, computers and their speeds, and any other peripherals, headphones. They need to be, like, there needs to be a standard set for competitive games. I would honestly say across all leagues. It's hard to say, because if you take a game like Rainbow Six Siege, Counter-Strike, Valorant, and even League of Legends, there's a genre split amongst those. But okay, we could just let's just get rid of League of Legends. But if you were to do, Rainbow, Counter-Strike, Valorant, Overwatch, professional shooters, you need a keyboard, WASD, and, pretty small set of the keys that you use there, a mouse, and headphones, and a monitor. Everything else is more technical. Since everyone's playing on the same internet, that's already a standard set, and that just needs to be low latency. And computers, I think for the most part, if there's a bar for the quality that you need to be, if your computer can do more than that, okay. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, even though it kind of could be. I think if your computer can output more frames than necessary, like if you're trying to do 144 frames for all the computers, you might have one that can go to 360, you might have another that can go 240, you might have one that just hits the bar at 144 evenly. But I think the way it works is that if a computer can output more frames, like the 360 frames per second, it has an advantage because it is able to send out information quicker compared to the 144. I don't remember what it was, but there was still an advantage even though all three of those computers could have been capped at 144. I think there's something, I don't remember what it was. But all these things need to be uniform. Everyone plays with the same type of baseball. Everyone plays, I think, with the same type of bat. Cleats, football, pads. There's no differentiation between any one of the teams. Except for esports, we have preference of keyboards and mice. But there isn't really, a conspiracy about, maybe a Razer keyboard has better was it polling rate than a Corsair one, or maybe a Logitech mouse is better than a Razer mouse, you know. But having those differences in the equipment doesn't make it uniform, thus kind of offsets, I think, a sort of competitive integrity a little bit. I think a little bit. I'm not sure. Same with headphones, because they need to be up to a standard, right? They all need to be able to output the same amount of data at the same rate, so that when it comes to one team going against another team, we don't have to question that their computers or monitors or keyboards and mice or foot pedals, if that ever becomes a thing, they're all so uniform or completely uniform that the reason that team beat that team is because that team is better than that team, not because they had better equipment than the others. And you don't get that anywhere else other than at the actual matches. And that's another big part that I think we're missing, is that you've got competitive leaderboards, skill-based matchmaking and all that online, but who's to say that those who are at the high ranks are better just because they're better, or because they have better equipment, versus the people at the lower ranks aren't able to compete with them because their equipment is not as good as the others. And there is diminishing returns on a higher refresh rate monitor. And I learned that because I was looking up a calculator, and it looked like, hold on, what was the refresh? Monitor refresh rates calculator. I don't remember what it was, but it basically showed that if you were going from 60 frames per second to 144, you would get so much more information just in those two. But if you go to 144 to 240, the amounts, the boon of going from 60 to 144 is huge. Going to 144 to 240 is like half that. And then going from 240 to 360 is even less. So there's definitely a limit to how much frames per second we'll actually get before it's not even worth instituting the technology to get that far. I don't even see a complete worth in jumping from 144 to 360. It's not that big of a deal. And those, 10 to 20 milliseconds, again, I don't think is that big of a deal, because we're not just looking at each other down the way and then just shooting. Especially when you consider a game like Overwatch, where you've got characters that aren't even hit scan. I think a game like Counter-Strike is literally the only game that matters when it comes to reaction time and refresh rate. I think the other ones could definitely be good at 144 or even 240. They could probably afford and spend the money for 240 refresh monitors, but it's a moot point. But I want standards. I want a complete list of the standards equipment that people need to be at as like a low bar, and where people can't go because it's going to give them a competitive advantage. And going back to the LAN center and having a place for people to come and train and compete and get used to it before they go off to collegiate esports or even pro esports, is that they all need to have their equipment set at a standard, so it doesn't matter where you go, but everything is uniform. So it's all about you performing in the game, not playing with equipment that is shittier because the LAN center had to cut costs somewhere, or it's better because they have sponsors all over the place. There needs to be set standards. I think that's important.
It's important for pros to stay up to date on the game and understand the ins and outs of the current metagame.
Yeah, but again, with updates, they play the game all the time. They can calculate when changes go off, so I don't think that's that big of a deal. Unless it's like a super mega update, but no.
Players have to constantly adjust to it and make sure they master every wrinkle of the game so they're ready for whatever's thrown at them. They don't have a moment to relax. Some pro teams take this intense training even further. In Chinese esports, some teams live under one roof for the entire year to train. And training only counts as training when the whole team is in the same room playing together. We wouldn't be surprised if players started hating their own teammates after living with them for so long.
But there might be better ways to do it. It's just everything's so new. I don't think this is like a standard for it. So
the reason all these esports teams put so much time into training is, well, to make money, of course. The prize money in some of the big esports tournaments is crazy. Players could win over $1 million for their team, but typically it's hundreds of thousands of dollars split among them, which is definitely nothing to laugh at. Not only do teams get the prize money, but winning a tournament could also bring in more sponsors, so even more money. At the end of the day, esports is a business, and teams want to make as much profit as possible. If a pro gamer's plate didn't look full enough already, there's even more training involved off-screen. Pros do a lot more than just play games. They work their butts off in the gym as well. In fact, esports gamers actually train like professional athletes, so all those stereotypes about pro gamers are just flat out wrong.
So let me offer a little bit of info on this bit. One thing I definitely want to check when I move into my new spot is I want to see if I can still maintain the same schedule that I do now. So my current schedule is getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. That's essential. I wake up at 6 in the morning. I go to the gym. I come back here. And then if I'm streaming that day, I give myself an hour to prep and all that. And go live at 9 o'clock until noon. And then from noon to 1 o'clock, I do some other stuff that I'm working on. Go get some food or whatever. Maybe take a shower. It all depends. And then at 1:30, I leave for my job. And then from 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. is me working my job. After 8 o'clock, I come home, maybe grab dinner, maybe just eat something here. And then 10 o'clock, I go to bed. And I've been rinsing and repeating that since the beginning of this year, 2022. And right now it's May 17th. I actually love that entire schedule. I didn't think I was going to. I did think that this was going to help change my mindset and also give me a bit of a physical, or not a physical, give myself a bit of a mental advantage. But also sort of coordinate myself a little bit better when it came to doing anything in life. And it's a big change. And it was honestly the best change I've made so far. One thing I do want to throw into the mix now is try to play more competitive games to see if sticking with that schedule, an actual schedule, and being able to perform in a game and see if that translates over, if that improves everything on top of that. And, you know, if that's the case, then realistically, that's one thing a lot of gamers need to start focusing on, because I know the night owl lifestyle. I understand that it's 2 in the morning and you're still playing games, but if you're trying to do something serious and take it serious, then you need to do other serious things other than playing the game seriously. And you being up at 2, 3 in the morning cussing your team out because, you know, they failed to do something which wasn't their fault, there's nothing there that says, you know, what you're doing is good, honestly. And especially games where it just takes one person to pop off, then you really don't need that team reliance. Having team to rely on is still a thing, regardless if it's Counter-Strike, Valorant, CSGO, Rainbow Six Siege, whatever. One person can still do things, even League of Legends. But if you're not taking care of yourself, and if you're not able to perform, then what's the point? So one thing I want to do once I move into my new home, I want to maintain that schedule, but also throw competitive gaming in the mix and see if I notice a considerable difference when it comes to working on it, improving, and seeing if it translates anywhere to online matchmaking. Unfortunately, though, I don't really have a place to go to play on LAN. There's three of the closest LAN centers I can think of don't have really a venue to play, and I don't know anyone personally to join a team for. I could probably find one if I tried. But there's none of that. There's no stage or anything. There's no venue to play at for fun, or even competitively. Even if I threw money into it to get that experience, I totally would. If I had to throw down $100 to do something for like a short season, like a 2-month season or something like that, which would be cool. But there's really nothing. So there's no way to literally test if I'm good, other than doing it online, which it's not the best, but that's all I can work with. But I want to change that. I honestly want to change that. I think it'd be the best thing in the world. I'd put out so many videos and information about how playing in person on a stage in front of people gets you to that point, because they're two different things. Playing, getting the highest rank in a game is nothing compared to playing professionally. The professionals can play at those high ranks, but not all high ranks can play professionally. I think there's a big difference right there. And it all comes down to being there in real life, physically. Anyway, but working out, doing all that, I think helps you mentally considerably. So if all you do is play the game 8, 10, 12 hours a day, decompressing by doing some workouts for even 30 minutes to an hour, that saves you mentally. But again, when you get out of high school at 18, one of the things that you do not do is work out. I didn't. As soon as I graduated high school, I was not doing anything physical for plenty of years. I did get a gym membership when the gym opened up in my town 7, 8 years ago. It's been a while. And I went to the gym off and on, but right now, incorporating that into everyday life mentally, I feel hardened. I feel so much better. I'm not anxious at all. It's honestly game-changing. Literally. No joke. And that's one thing I also want to do at a LAN center, is have like a little mini gym for gamers to go and work out. It's some mega complex like that would be the dream. A place for people to play casually, a small little location for people to work out, maybe a shower, and then a venue for games to go off. Granted, that costs a stupid amount of money, but, if one has a stupid amount of money, it'd be insane.
Pros exercise like crazy to stay in top physical shape. You may be asking, why do gamers need to exercise if they just need to sit down to play? Well, it turns out that exercise has 3 main benefits for gamers. It improves endurance, increases their ability to cope with stress, and even improves cognitive function.
Sure. Seems about right.
Endurance might not be something you'd think gamers would need to work on to make it in the pro scene, but you'd be surprised.
I mean, if they have to sit still for... They're not still, but if they have to sit for like 6, 7, 8 hours a day just to practice, you definitely need the endurance. Sitting is costly.
High endurance will come in handy during tournaments where pro gamers need to be as focused as possible for as long as possible.
True.
If you're tired or not in good shape, it could be hard to stay focused.
True.
Using performance enhancers like Adderall are banned in many tournaments.
If competitive gaming has a substance use problem, I mean, I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but I'd be just all sorts of tilted. I think, yeah, I mean, anything competitive, the things outside the game definitely need to be monitored. They need to be strict about it. So if you are taking something or doing something that the others aren't, I think having that information available would be a good idea, but, vitamins, a good diet, shit like that, of course. Taking drugs like Adderall, that's fucked up. Yeah, so it's shit that still needs to be monitored, even playing professional games.
So exercise could give gamers that boost without having to take any performance enhancers. As you can tell, it's quite stressful to be a pro gamer. Now, it's true that exercise is its own form of stress on the body, but it's physical stress as opposed to mental stress that pro gamers deal with on a daily basis.
And honestly, the best way to deal with mental stress is working out. Like, big time. And also a regular sleep schedule. That's one thing I kind of skipped over. Constantly going to bed at a certain time and waking up at a certain time gets your body in such a, it gets them in such a schedule, such a rhythm that your brain isn't like, oh, we're doing something completely different. Time to freak out. Sleep is huge. Uninterrupted, consistent sleep. And, good quality sleep. Having that plus a good sleep schedule and plus working out, you're set up to be able to do anything. There's no stress. And that'll help you perform big time. So, one piece of advice for anyone watching the stream, watching the VOD, consistent sleep and working out. And quality sleep and having enough sleep. Do all of that and go play anything competitive and tell me whether or not it's good for you. Because personally, it is good for me. And I'm 30 years old. Fuck.
In fact, exercise is said to help take away mental stress and make it easier to cope with. So by exercising, you're essentially giving your body the tools for it to be successful in dealing with mental stress. Believe it or not, pro gamers deal with the same stressors as pro athletes, so they also have that in common.
Being alive. Being an adult. You get granted stress.
If a pro gamer chokes or makes a mistake during a big tournament, costing their team the match, they could be out the door and replaced in a matter of weeks.
That coupled with kids makes it disgusting.
We see this happen in pro sports all the time, with players getting cut or sent down due to bad performance. The stressors that pro gamers typically experience are stage fright, team communication problems, and a lack of confidence in one's teammates. Other stressors include trash talk from opponents and social media attacks. Again, these are all similar to what pro athletes deal with on a daily basis. Sometimes trash talk can get to someone and make them feel down, and even more so with social media attacks. It's easy to ignore all that jazz, but let's be honest, constantly having people tell you that you're horrible could really get to you over time. Due to all of the stress, it's extremely easy to get burnt out as a pro gamer, even if they're in their 20s. There's a lot to do.
Which is an issue. Like, it's a huge issue. Gamers aren't just there playing the game. What about the other 90-95% of the time? They're dealing with being an adult, and no one's prepared for that. You don't even need coaches for the game. You need coaches for life. Got to hire them on staff.
To deal with, and we're sure this stress factor is one of the reasons why pro gamers retire so young.
Yeah. Because they can't handle it. They're still kids.
With all the time and effort pro gamers put into their careers, exercising can truly keep them in a good state of mind and positively affect their performance. Exercise will also improve brain function in terms of speed, attention, and flexibility. This means that exercise could improve reaction time and hand-eye coordination.
I mean, well, that's obvious. Increase reaction time and hand-eye coordination through physical training. Duh. And you get that from kids at 18 because they're still fresh off of being a kid. Going to high school, probably doing some form of sport, but it's not an age thing. It's not a young thing. It's before you get pushed out of the public school system, you went through a thing where you're doing shit every day except the weekends, where you're working, learning at a school for 8 hours a day. You go from that to adulthood, you need to bring a lot of that with you, and most people don't. Most people do not do that. Some go straight to college, and even that's, not that big of a switch. But they're still kids. Up until 21, 22, you're still a kid. You're still very much a fucking kid. The vast majority of us do not do any lick of growing until, you know, maybe mid-20s. Like, no shot.
Two of the
You still can't even rent a fucking car until you hit 25.
most important skills for pro gamers. As you can tell, there aren't that many differences between pro gamers and pro athletes. They both train and work their butts off every single day to make sure that they're the very best that they could be at their profession. Pro gamers deserve much more respect than they sometimes get. And that's what's involved in being a professional gamer. It's a much more grueling job than we thought. Are you interested in becoming a pro gamer, or has that ship already sailed? Let us know in the comments section down below. And
No. Personally, I don't believe that ship has sailed. Actually, let me switch to this real quick. Let me get rid of the... well, hold on. Let me do this. I still need to set up a few things, but let me put the webcam back on. There we go. Okay. So, no. Personally, that ship has not sailed. I don't think that ship is capable of sailing in pro video games so long as the person who's performing has played consistently since they were a kid. Like, I'm 30 years old, and when I first joined my job at the LAN center, the manager that we did have temporarily, he's saying, damn, you're pretty good at Overwatch. And I'm just like, yeah, I played the game consistently. And he was like, how old are you? 28. I'm like, and he was just like, really? I'm like, that's what happens when you do things consistently. If you get a 30-year-old and you put him into a game fresh, they're gonna suck. You get a 16-year-old and put him into a game, chances are they'll still suck, but they'll keep playing it because it looks like fun. And after a few months, they're probably going to get better at it versus the 30-year-old, which might take a little bit more time to get at. But if you maintain that level and, you know, you still consistently play games, you don't fall off. Personally, I think there's more research into that needs to be done, and it's still way too soon to call it. That the window for professional gaming is between the ages of 18 and 25. I think no. That's not the case. All right, so we are chilling for a little bit. Let me put some music on. But yeah, I think there's huge potential, but we're still not doing the right things to I guess push it forward. And then another big piece of the puzzle that still needs to be worked on is developers making the games. You know, what's the most recent competitive game that's come out? Valorant? That came out in 2020? Imagine releasing a game in the middle of the pandemic. Or, I guess, not in the middle, at the beginning. But, anyway. So, you know, that's the most recent game that's been introduced into the world competitively. And it's got a league, you know, it's made by Riot, which is home to the most popular competitive game in the world, League of Legends. And people currently, and this goes back to the podcast I was listening to a couple days ago, sometime last week, they were saying Valorant as itself right now, as its own competitive game, as a league, is still kind of lackluster compared to everything else. So it all depends on what Riot's going to do to change it. And they did announce changes to the competitive thing about Valorant, which I want to take a look at. I forgot that was actually a thing until now. Riot's reveals competitive Valorant changes for oh wait, hold on. I really have to specify what year I'm talking about, otherwise they're going to pull up new shit from before. Let me go Google real quick. Riot Games announces new Valorant Esports League model. April 28th, 2022. Riot Games announces new Valorant Esports League model. Okay. Let me skim through this real quick. This is from the Washington Post. Alright. Let's go back to the world view. Riot Games announced a slate of changes to Valorant Esports Thursday, including the introduction of international and domestic leagues, as well as a new competitive game mode for aspiring pro players. All changes are scheduled for 2023. The news sets the game, which now boasts 15 million monthly players, on course to replicate some of the success of the developer's marquee esports product, League of Legends. We'll use everything we learned from the past 10 years with League of Legends esports to build an ecosystem that will supercharge Valorant into the next great multi-generational esport. Okay, so they've got lofty goals. Maybe not lofty, but they got big. Says John Needham, president of esports of Riot Games, in a statement. Game changers Valorant's competitive circuit for women and other marginalized genders is also set for an expansion to more countries and regions in 2023, according to Riot's announcement. Now, this bit is interesting. Valorant's competitive circuit for women and other marginalized genders. Irregardless, there was one video that showed the one Russian all-female League of Legends team that was quite honestly a bad decision from the get-go. And it's not to say that women aren't as good as men at games. That's that's not the case, especially for some. Some will outperform men, even the best. But one thing I think that holds women back compared to men when it comes to doing things professionally but also competitively is that men are out to kill. We're on the front lines to kill our opposition. That was one bit I think I took away from Michael Jordan's documentary, was you need to be out there to destroy your team, the enemy team. And if you don't have that mindset going out there, you'll get destroyed instead. So it's like you need to go out there with the intent to kill every time in order to just have that mental advantage over them. And I don't know if women carry that more often than men. I would assume no. But some still would. There are definitely outliers with anything. But you're not going to come across a woman who's going to be so much more competitive than a man, where the advantage that you get from that mentality completely, beats out skill. Because there is a bit of that mental advantage. I believe so. People, they go hard. I played competitive baseball for as long as I have, and there were guys that were, not using the word rude, but complete fucking pricks. And they didn't break any rules or anything like that, but they still had to put themselves out there as the biggest asshole ever in order to win. Are you going to find more women doing that than men? Probably not. And it was honestly kind of depressing seeing the all-women team for League of Legends. They didn't get to destroy a tower in the LCS until the 11th game that they played. Until then, it was no towers destroyed and not even a handful, like maybe a handful, like not even count on two hands, kills. So this, I think, is definitely a good thing. Having different leagues for women, especially because there's just such a difference in mindset. Less so about skill, because I think, they've got... everyone that's able to play games is all set up to do the exact same thing. There's no big difference. The one huge game-changing difference is mindset. You're out there to destroy, not to win. That's not good enough. You're out to destroy. You're out to annihilate. Any other word that puts you mentally over someone else, even if it's hubris, that can still carry you. That can, be your downfall. But I think consistently winning, you gotta want to taste blood. that's definitely been the case when it came to war. Like, you don't go out there with the best intentions. You're not going out there with your army to win. No, you're going out there to fucking murder. And you got to carry that mindset in any competition. You're out there to fucking murder. But anyway, let's continue. Corner Rides announcement, more countries, regions, 2023. And then, yeah, expanding the competitive circuit for anyone out there. Yeah, definitely. Getting what I was saying before with the video is blanket, as many people as possible so that we can actually find all the really good players and get them in the limelight, get them in front of everyone else. But at the highest level, 2023's esports overhaul will begin with the founding of 3 international leagues, including high-performing teams like the Americas, Europe, and Asia, right? You got to regionalize it. These leagues will host weekly competitions and LAN events with live audiences. There we go. If health protocols allow for them, depending. With the best teams facing off in 2 Masters events, and with the year culminating in a Champions event. Sounds about right. Because, even in the United States, probably everywhere else in the world, but just off the top of my head, we do divide the entire league into different sections. And then those sections have their grand tournament. And then, depending on who won each section, you go to like the Super Bowl or the World Series, and you crown the whole team in the entire league. So yeah, splitting it up between all the different areas, and then going from there to just drop it down to just 2 teams for the Champions event for sure. Throughout the rest of the year, Riot will seek out teams for long-term permanent partnership. Okay. So they want to establish a, it's not a franchise, but, or is it a franchise? I don't know. But they want to establish that. Similar but not identical to the system in place in League of Legends esports. These partnerships, the announcement said, will confer 2 key benefits to teams. First, selected teams won't have to pay entry or participation fees, right, because they're a part of the league, and will instead receive an annual stipend from Riot, right, because they're part of it. They build with the league, therefore, it's not like getting it's weird to like phrase it like that, getting a stipend from Riot, but that's essentially what it is. Pertinent organizations will also have the option to collaborate with the developer on in-game events and branded products. Okay. Riot also cited teams' ability to plan several years ahead in tandem with the developer as a tertiary benefit. Okay. Setting up our long-term partners for success by foregoing any entry or participation fees for selected organizations. There's really no point to having that when they're part of it so much so that they're synonymous with each other. So, no, that makes sense. Head of Esports. Our aim is to free our partners to invest their resources in supporting their pros and growing their fan bases through creating incredible content for fans. Right. In addition, Riot announced it launches domestic games for rising talent with ambitions to play in the international leagues. Riot announced it would launch domestic leagues. Okay. And 1 tier below, a new competitive in-game mode will allow top players to compete against teams in the domestic leagues, creating an on-ramp for new talent to enter the game's scene, esports scene. That bit is interesting. So, sorry, my front of my nose is just itching and it's irritating. But I am curious how that's going to work. I would imagine that for the current competitive league, if you are diamond and above, then this new competitive in-game mode is going to be open for you to hop in and play. And in so doing so, one thing I think that Riot definitely needs to add is some way to verify identity so that you don't have Smurfs and whatnot making a bunch of different accounts to get into it. And then again, if people are, toxic online and then they try to translate that into this new in-game mode, they need to be held accountable for, being fucking stupid and need to get, timed out, permabanned, and, whatever shit needs to go on, but also give them a way in to be contacted by other people that are scouting for any domestic leagues or the international leagues. So I'm curious how this is going to work. And again, they still need to go physically to a place in order to perform in front of people on a stage against the other team and stuff like that. Having it in an in-game mode, I would assume would give them some sort of like priority server connection, which would be interesting, so that they could play low ping and all that and be matched up with people that live close to them, granted their points on domestic leagues. So I should only be grouped up with people that live in the southwestern United States. But no, I'm completely down. Very curious how this is going to work. I don't know if this is something already in League and they're just bringing it over to Valorant, but that'd be cool. Details about the new in-game mode, including the release date, have not been revealed. So we'll find out what that is. But good for Riot to try to, really push the envelope in terms of growing the scene and getting more and more people into it. So very much down for that. Very much sounds interesting. Oops. Misclick. But yeah. So that pretty much covered esports training, physical and mental stuff. Because, yeah, to be honest, one thing I think a lot of people need to incorporate into their competitive gaming, other than playing the game that they're trying to play, other than trying to climb the ladder and trying to climb rank, is to do stuff outside of gaming. Getting good sleep, getting good quality sleep, getting enough sleep, and working out. Quite honestly, I feel so much better mentally being on this new schedule that I created for myself than I have the past 10 years or so. Like, not to say I climbed in a time machine and I feel 20 again. That's just going to sound cringy as fuck. But no, there were definitely times within the last 5 years where my anxiety levels have been super spiked, and I even had not really a panic attack, but I was on the edge of one. Like, I couldn't go to sleep. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I was not tired at all. My pulse was running way too fucking high in the middle of the night at like 2 in the morning. And I honestly couldn't get to sleep for about a week. Like, it was disgusting. I had no idea what then I was doing that was doing that, other than my sleep. My sleep has always been the biggest detriment to my day. If I don't get enough sleep, or if I woke up too many times in the middle of the night, and I knew that, my anxiety levels would be up, my energy levels would be down, and it was just not fun anywhere. It was honestly painful. But consistently going to sleep at the same time every night, except the weekends, that's one thing I do want to change. But for the past 6 months, changing jobs, getting married, and then I'm going to be moving into my new place in about 2 weeks. There's so much shit going on right now that I need to do on the weekends. My sleep is just going to suffer until then. But doing what I'm doing Monday through Friday is really offsetting any of the shit that I have to do on the weekend. But I do want to go back to doing that every day of the week. Monday through Monday is go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, because I don't want to do that just because I want to be healthy and all that, but I want to see the difference in my days. I want to see the quality of life improvement. And then I'll tell you guys all about it, like I am right now. And I can say for the past 5 months that I've been doing it, I feel so much better. I've even lost a bunch of weight too. I used to dance between 245 and 250. Last I checked, I was about 231. So, losing 10, 15, almost 20 pounds over the course of 5 months, that's pretty fucking good. And my muscle, I've gotten so much more muscle than I did before. So, no, I mean, doing all of that, getting good sleep, maintaining the same sleep schedule, going to the gym and working out for 45 minutes to an hour almost every day, it's been so different. And my job, because I work at an elementary school, I'm a custodian, so my job is very physically demanding, and I do that Monday through Friday for 6 hours, and that, so I get zero anxiety going into the job, which I used to do for my other jobs. I've got 1 hour to go until I got to go to work, and then I'm just like, I don't want to go to work. That's 100% gone. I feel nothing when going to work, mentally thinking about all the shit that I have to do, and then just dreading every moment up until I get into the car and start driving over there. That's completely gone. I used to get that so much when working my other jobs. Now, no. And it's still a difficult job. And, doing the same thing every single day definitely gets to you. But at least I got the entire month of July off. I get 1 month off. Perks of working at a school. But, oh, my nose. I scratch my nose and it just itches. But, all that anxiety doing that is just gone. And I'm curious how much of that is going to translate to gaming. I have played a little bit of Overwatch 2 on stream and off stream. And I can say that performing in the game has gotten easier and better. I would just need a little bit more time to play those games in order to see if I can still maintain that. And also when it comes to playing competitively. So just doing quick play when there's nothing really on the line is not much of a stressor. But once we go into ranked game modes and trying to perform there, playing with other people, having my teammates, berate me or another teammate, which is just the most obnoxious thing in the fucking world. That's one thing I want to change with a LAN center is just, I just want to talk to people and be like, hey, buddy, if you're going to be a fucking asshole to your other teammates, you're just going to get the fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to keep being a fucking asshole, you're gone. Like, I just want to... It's one thing I want to fix is the shit talking that you do to your teammates. I can understand shit talking the enemy team, which even then is still cringy and annoying as fuck, especially if you're in the same room together. It's just... But when people get on your case and they're on your team, what the fuck are you even doing? Like, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Because I grew up playing sports. You don't shit on your teammates. You lift them up. You tell them, nice try. You tell them, good job. And you mean it. They're on your team. I think the turnover of teammates that we get in competitive matchmaking has... what's the word? It's jaded us as a community. Like... You've got these 4 other teammates on your team, and then I've had this plenty of times in Overwatch. Those teammates are now your enemies. So the whole concept is just gone. It's devolved itself into everyone's your fucking enemy. And with that, there's really no room for growth. So you can't grow. The vast majority of us, I think, will not be able to grow in competitive matchmaking in-game. And that needs to be more directed to real life. So if we got people, physical people inside a LAN center that need to talk to one another, I think the toxicity of online matchmaking will start to go down. But those people need to be with other people. And you need adults that know, hey, they're on your team, don't be a fucking prick about it. And then on top of that, if we can introduce leagues for the school system, then you've got month after month after month of the same teammates that you need to lift up in order to do better. You don't just be like, hey, why the fuck are you playing? Why are you on my team? You suck, kid. That doesn't help anyone. Like, I've heard that to other teammates. I've been called that by other teammates. And I'm just like, man, you're really a good teammate. You know that? You're almost guaranteeing yourself to just have a horrible time and to lose. And I personally, I hate it. I hate the toxicity. But the game is very much built to do that, to be toxic. And it wasn't for any intention, but it's always been that way, and there's been no fix for it. Maybe one thing we could do, I mean, one thing we could do, it's kind of already in the game, but if we had, like, your friends list, you make friends with people. I've made plenty of friends with people that I met in competitive lobbies. So if they're playing, I join them, get invited, we make a team, we go out and play. Maybe there needs to be something on the inside of the game where there's a group of guys per season that you join, that you can friend up, group up with, and play competitively. And they're a group of people that you're stuck with for maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple months inside the competitive season, and then it rotates. And that's I don't know, it's like your mini squad. It could be a room of like 50 people, but those 50 people are your team. And I don't know, because you're still meeting new people, so there's like a curve that you got to go through in order to meet them. But I mean, it's no different than seeing random guys in your games and then just grouping up and playing with them. But I don't know, there's got to be something that gets people talking and starts building rapport, starts building, you know, camaraderie. And then you build a team together, and then you go and play, and then you have fun, and then you improve instead of just being with toxic people, and then you just end up leaving the game because you just don't want to deal with it. The toxicity outweighs the fun of the game, I would say, a considerable amount. So, my thoughts on that. And again, it offers credence to the idea of building LAN centers that focus more on esports. The potential just pisses me off. Oops, my bad. I just think it'd be so good. So good. Let's see. Oh yeah, I also want to see, because I've said this before, I think on stream or in a video, but my area does have a in the school system, it does have a esports section, but it's very small, limited, and small, especially in scope. But I wonder what the qualifications for being a coach are. Naturally, you got to know the game, but do you need other qualifications that you can acquire coaching anything else, like a traditional sport or anything like that? If you can take that experience plus the game you're trying to do, does that just equal coach? So you got to be analytical with the games and whatnot, give insight to your team, but also kind of lead your team as if you're like the captain in a way. There's no, it's all too new. That's the thing. Everything is too goddamn new. And it's open to interpretation. But I'm curious what it would take in order to be a coach. I think it'd be interesting. But yeah, nah, the video and its similarities it drew to pro athletes, I think there's a lot of similarities to it. But one thing I wish the leagues would focus on is standards, so that everyone plays on the same equal footing. It all just boils down to which team is better. Standards. I think standards would make it evolve. But also, I'm curious if anything else is going to get added to competitive gaming other than keyboard and mouse and headset. I am a fan of the foot pedal. I think the foot pedal is a hidden gem, an unrealized asset that a lot of people could benefit from. I want to take a look at, hold on. I believe Elgato has a foot pedal, Stream Deck pedal. this thing. They've got a Stream Deck pedal, $90, and I believe it's 3 different inputs, this left, middle, and right. I think a foot pedal is another peripheral that the competitive community is not utilizing yet. There is a bunch of inputs you can give your keyboard, especially if you do like a half keyboard. So you've got numbers 1 through 5, you've got all pretty much QWERTY, ASDFGH, ZX, CVB, spacebar, control shift, all of that. Tilde, tab, alt tab, 1 through 6. I think I said that already. So, you know, there's there's a decent chunk of keyboard that you can use. I feel like most mice are doing left, right click, mouse wheel, mouse click, up and down mouse wheel, and also 2 thumb buttons. So there's a decent amount of input, but I'm actually struggling a little bit to find out where I want to put the ping system from Overwatch on a certain section of my keyboard or on my mouse or a foot pedal. I currently do have a foot pedal that I use primarily for voice comms, for push to talk. But if I had 3, that could be good. Just 3 additional inputs, because your feet don't do anything. And I think your feet could be a part of that. But again, does this then change standards? If more people play with a foot pedal, does it become adopted? Do developers start using foot pedal specific abilities? Because what if one person has it on their mouse, another's got it on the keyboard, another's got the for a foot pedal? You know, does that switch up change the standards? Do key bindings need to be the same for everyone in order to make the game even? Or does everyone just need to try every different type of setup for keybinds and they can just do however way they want? You know, with pitchers for pitchers in baseball that throw differently, for left-handed, for right-handed, those that like to throw more curves than changeups, you know, does that make the game a little bit more unfair? I don't think so. So maybe keybinds, that wouldn't matter until, you know, players find out that doing it a certain way is way easier and better than doing it the way they were doing before. But I think a foot pedal has potential to join, I guess, the list of standards. My thoughts. I think eventually I'll pick this up, but for now I'm using a like a $20, $30 one pad foot pedal, and it's just connected via USB. So I'm curious actually if the rates at my input rate on my foot pedal is so slow compared to something Elgato could make. That'd be worth getting into, because I only use this for voice comms, and I do notice a bit of a delay because it's kind of like the triggers on the back of an of an Xbox controller. There's so much time between full rest and all the way down. This is a Pro controller, so I can actually adjust that. So instead of going all the way down, it just does little clicks. I'm curious if this has got faster input than my pedal, because my pedal, I have to push it all the way down for it to start working. And it's not that big of a deal. I did grow up as a drummer, so I'm used to the idea of a foot pedal. Ooh, what if you had 2 of them? So you had 6 pedals to press. That might take a lot of practice. And then, depending on the game, whether or not the utility of using 6 additional foot pedals on top of all the things you can use on the keyboard, on top of all the things you can use on the mouse, if it's worth. But hey, you know, that's potential. I don't know. I'm just curious if we're actually going to use more things other than what we've been using since the 90s. Like the early PC days. Keyboard, mice. It's been the same thing for forever? Are we going to add anything? Our feet do nothing. I think foot pedals is something that could be a thing. And I think so much of that, I'm actually going to, I think I'm actually going to get that foot pedal, the Elgato one, and I'm going to use it. And I'm going to see if it's a game changer. Yeah. I'm actually interested now. Because I really want to see. I think it'd be good. Alright. Let's see. And then I wonder if there's a lot of coaches that have put up. I don't know if all of them. Again, I think everything's too new. If any coaches put up like insights on it, it's going to be very tied to now. It's not going to be tied for the future. And it's hard to say if anything they say now is going to hold up for the future. Competitive gaming landscape, I think, changes so much that I think there's fundamentals to start doing, which translate into everything, so you might as well just start there. But any correlation between the different games, the different leagues, how you train, how you work out, I think all of those are open to interpretation. Except for the fundamentals, except for the working out part. That, I think, is pretty fundamental. Practicing your game, working out, good sleep, quality of sleep, diet even. But, yeah, those things, working on those fundamentals, you can probably do anything you want. And then, of course, playing your game. But, I don't know. I think it's way too early to tell. It's only 2022. Overwatch came out in 2016. Before that, you've got League, Dota, Counter-Strike, games that have an established league, games that have an established league, and too many new games right now that are going up in viewership, some are going down. So, and then I'm curious if, like, you've got Riot, who's got a MOBA and an FPS, and those are their main focus. And I believe they still have an MMORPG that they're working on. I don't think I've heard anything else about that. So you've got a company that's trying to spearhead, massive esports stuff. Is it all going to come down to a company, or is it going to come down to a genre? Granted, we have plenty of traditional sports that people watch and people consume, so we could probably have a wide variety of stuff, but it all depends on how much attention a lot of these games in different leagues get comparatively. All right, let's see, it's almost 11. I pretty much said, I think, all I want to say on the subject today. I think today was pretty, past 2 hours, pretty, content heavy. I did fill in that I'm doing Valorant. There is no, just chatting section, so I figured I just might throw this under the Valorant hood of, YouTube, which, I did talk about it. I looked up an article about Riot. It's pretty relevant. So, kind of fits. But I wasn't really planning on playing it. I need to see... Oh, that's one more thing I wanted to talk about. Was, so, training outside of the game, you've got, you're working out, being physically able, but what do you do on the computer other than playing the game to practice? And I do like using aim labs and some of those other aim trainers sparingly, not as a way to getting completely better at the game, because I think playing the actual game is how you get better at the game. Playing with teams, in the game engine, all of that. Playing in it is where you're going to get better. But it's more of a fundamental workout, doing things like aim labs as a warm-up, maybe even a cooldown, but and more fine-tuning for like your equipment. But playing the actual game is playing the actual game. And aim labs is still pretty good. I haven't opened it up in a few months. I think I might do that at some point, but it's still a solid aim trainer. I would definitely recommend it. But let me think. Yeah, that's more or less what I wanted to talk about. What's today? 17th is today. So we've got less than 2 weeks before I start moving. Since I'm here, let me think about what I need to do in order to do that transition. Though I'm not going to move. So the beginning of my lease is June 1st, which is a Wednesday. And I work Monday through Friday, so I don't think that's going to be... I don't think it's going to be viable, so I might have to put it off until that weekend. So the 1st is Wednesday, so the weekend starts on the 4th of June. So I might have to wait until then, or I might do it the weekend before. I'm not sure. But in that process, I still need to buy a desk to use over there. And I think next week. So the remainder of this week, I think I can do stuff. I think in middle of next week, I might have to start taking things apart and organizing everything. Because I've got a bunch of wires. And I need to find out what I can take, what I'm going to take, and what I'm not going to take. Because my room is going to transform into my dad's office. Because, you know, he works for a living. And he's an accountant, so he needs his office back. This used to kind of be his office until I took it over like 12, 13 years ago. But, yeah, that's neither here nor there. But, I need to figure out what I'm going to take. I need to organize all of my cords and all my bullshit. And probably put it all somewhere. Last thing that's going to go is the computer, because I can take this apart. I can gather up all the cords and, you know, put them in a bag. So I know these cords are all the computer cords. But I've got all my peripherals and shit. I've got so much shit in my room that I need to go through and figure out what I'm going to take. What I'm going to take now, you know, I'm not going so far away where it's not going to be feasible to drive back and forth. I'm definitely going to be making trips back and forth here probably the next month, just picking up extra stuff. But what I do want to do from the get-go, because I'm going to live in there before Melissa moves in with me for about a week and a half, probably even 2 weeks. So, you know, what am I going to do all that time? I still want to see if I can still do content, or at least boot up the computer and play things, do things. But and then in the move, I also need to go to Best Buy because I need a Ethernet switch and probably a few other things. I don't know. So I need to look into doing that, but after the move and all that and everything's set up, I will let you guys know if I can stream. We'll definitely attempt doing it. I like how now, you know, the past week or so that I've been streaming, my internet here has just been good. Because the last time I streamed was March 2021. And my internet was just being a little bitch that entire time. But now it's good. And I'm just hoping and praying that the internet we use over there is good. If it's not good for streaming, then I'll do my best to do other forms of content instead, which I kind of want to focus on more anyway, so that's either going to be a boon or not. But if I can stream, I will stream. If I can't stream, then I will just be putting out extra content. And, yeah, so we're only going to live there for a year. It all depends on how the economy is going to go until 2023, so So yeah, dudes, that's basically where I'm at. Yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. I think I touched on a bunch of useful pieces of information, but I'll get into doing. So once we have weekends available, I might start streaming on those days as well. I don't know what Melissa and I are going to do once we finally move it in and we're finally away from everything. If we're just going to book our weekends to doing all sorts of shit from the get-go. If I'm going to have weekends available to do things. But yeah, that's just what we're going to have to find out. But for now, I think I might stream a few more days out of this week. I don't know if I'm going to be on tomorrow. I might be on Thursday or Friday or both. And then for next week, I might be on one or two of the days. And then basically going to start the moving process. But yeah, I think I'm good for today. Thank you guys for watching the stream. Thank you guys for checking out the VOD. If you guys are new here, I'd appreciate a sub. I'm pretty much just doing content on esports and gaming in general. And if you guys are watching the VOD or the stream right now, I'd appreciate a like. It really, really helps out the channel. It helps me out considerably. And yeah, I will let you guys know when the next stream is going to be. Until then, you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you later.